Hello and welcome back to the ball. I'm the Gav Major and this is Sea Trials. Sea Trials is your gameplays with my commentary and tactical overlays. Today we have a submission from Ekizoon, who's playing the British Tier 7 battleship Vanguard. Now this is a Tier 7 and Legendary game of domination on sleeping giants. On the friendly team, there's an Attigo, a Hipper, a Wichita, an Alaska, a Battleship, an Odin, Ekizoon in his Vanguard, a Yamato, and a Grosset Kurfürst. And on the enemy team, we have a Kagero, an Attigo in a division with an Iowa, a Megami, a Wichita, a Battleship, a Bismarck, a Yamato, and another Yamato. It always amuses me to sometimes see posts and comments and things like that whinging when they see games of 5 destroyers, but you never see anyone complaining about games with 5 battleships, and I would say that's a lot more common these days. So it's another battleship heavy game, but with legendary tier being mostly just battleships, it's to be expected. The enemy team looked to probably, like, on paper, obviously it's all subject to player skill, but on paper the enemy team look to be in a better situation. They have the only destroyer in the game, and if that destroyer can play it right, there's good potential for them to get away with this. Now, friendly Attigo is just notified that he's been spotted, and the friendly Attigo is located in the Delta objective, and give it a little bit of time, and we shall see what happens. There we go. He was from spotted to being devastatedly struck, 24 seconds, I think, when I looked over it. So already one ship down. Not very good. You'll note that on the mini-map, the enemy are starting to take their positions. The enemy Wichita is really getting into a nice position there, getting a nice crossfire over the objective. And unfortunately, it looks like the enemy has basically already got their foot in the door here. Also looking at the minimap, you'll note that Ekizoon's team just seems to be lemon training over here. I mean, Ekizoon's kind of spawned over here, so it's understandable why he's pushed in here. But why are the forces that spawned on the left coming over? Why are they not going into the Alpha objective? And that's what I don't quite get. And you'll note that cruiser that's just parked up behind the island, he doesn't move for the rest of the game. That's his position, which seems so strange. Enemy Megami spotted broadside on, switching to armor piercing. Now, the Vanguard does come with a main battery reload booster, and potentially with that cruiser being broadside on, it would be tempting to use it. The reason being is it will get your AP rounds loaded quicker, and even if you didn't want to do that and you just find the rounds now, I still think it'd be a good choice, because then you might be able to get a follow-up shot nice and quickly, which would allow you to get rid of that Megami before she actually disengages or anything like that. Getting a nice citadel. Unfortunately, due to the way that Ekizoon is angled, he's got the irons to his front. So that's me just highlighting the main battery reload boost. So could have been a nice potential there. However, I believe that he secures the kill on the Megami. There we go. Yeah, so gets 2 more citadels and a devastating strike on the Megami. So through Ekizoon's own effort, he's been able to do that. The Yamato and the Vladivostok getting in some nasty hits on his Vanguard, and you'll note that the enemy they've really secured this flank. They've got a Wichita tucked in halfway up. They've got a Vladivostok and another. All their battleships are up there, so it looks like Ekizoon's team's committed very heavily here, but the enemy team have also committed very heavily here as well. And the enemy team have been able to get into position and knock off 2 of Ekizoon's fellow cruisers for the exchange of 1. Using his monster repair party on the Vanguard as he's being focused, so at the moment he's tanking the damage, using high explosives against the angled battleships, as it's more likely going to do more damage, especially with the ability of to set fires with the British high explosives. Now we know that the enemy destroyer is located in the Bravo area, and double fire, quickly get the damage control off. Time to get out of here. and get into a maybe a slightly better position. So in Ekizoon's email, he asked, is there any way that this could have turned out differently? And I've been watching it and trying to work it out, and I think it's hard to see how it could have turned out differently purely on Ekizoon's own efforts. I think in order for this game to have turned out differently, I think the left flank probably needed to move round and secure the Alpha objective, and then re-secure the Bravo objective. I believe that the cruiser that's tucked in behind the island is a Wichita, which would be absolutely perfect for hunting the Kagero. Unfortunately, it's kind of being left to the Odin, which you can see is pushing up into the Bravo objective. So I think that's where it all goes wrong with this team, unfortunately. Ekizoon getting another heal off, which is yeah, justified. I think you're looking at about getting 20,000-ish HP back on a single repair party on the Vanguard. So that's about four green bars, I guess you could say. So Ekizoon looks like he's going to get himself into a position behind this island. It looks like they're pretty much committed to this flank. Looks like it's probably best to do like a fighting retreat on this flank, but it's just a matter of where to go, and I think that's the problem with the Kagero lingering around out there. She's got a free reign to do whatever she wants, and the Wichita doesn't seem intent on moving out from behind the island to find her, unfortunately. Even though he's got decent armor to bounce 15-inch guns, there's actually quite a few 18-inch and 16-inch guns on the enemy team. So you can see the torpedoes from the Kagero coming in against the general area over on the left there, which burns out the Yamato. So this it's just turned into a really strange game where it's just about holding your own, and Ekizoon's actually not doing too badly already. He's managed to get himself up to 78,000 damage. So it's got to the point now where the enemy is actually starting to push in. It's basically keeping up and filling in the void, I guess you could say. Now his heals now become available, but you'll note that it's only going to heal about 15,000 HP. I would have been quite tempted there to maybe just hold off. I know you could probably do with the HP as soon as possible, but I'd be tempted just to hold off and wait until you know you can get every last little bit out of that heal, because you'll note that once you get to a certain point you miss out on probably about 4 seconds of that heal, and on the Vanguard the amount of heal that you get per second is quite chunky. Unfortunately, that Wichita that's really dug in behind the island manages to get a fire on you just as your heal finishes off, unfortunately. So the enemy's continuing the push. The enemy Kagero has been spotted for the first time just south of the Bravo objective. And the Wichita that's behind the island refuses to come out from behind there still, even though all the enemy battleships are located over here, focusing on the remaining ships over on this flank. So down in the description it will be the modules and the commander build that Ekizoon has used. From a brief look at his commander build, he's using Madden, inspired by Jellicoe and the Revel, and skills he's using are not one from Nuisance, Crisscross, Firefighter, Master Mechanic and Will to Rebuild, so a very tanky build. Modules wise, he's using aiming systems, propulsion mod, using main battery mod. I'm not sure whether he's using the target acquisition mod, the third slot, which is basically pretty much there's only one choice. But considering that will cost you about 2 million credits, I can see why he might want to give it a pass. Enemy Wichita is now pushing out from behind the island, and you can see that the The enemy team has pretty much formed up a nice gravy train. They're all in a Congo line coming down in order to nom up on the on Ekizoon's team, unfortunately. I think I've missed it, but the friendly Odin gets torpedoed by the Kagera earlier. And an Iowa has now got a nasty crossfire on Ekizoon, so looking at the map, he needs to go for that red triangle area that I highlighted to the south in order to keep himself angled against both the enemy Valavistok and the enemy Iowa. Knocking off his last repair party, so this is pretty much all the HP he's going to be able to have. And the Valavistok looks like he's going mostly broadside on. Yes. So firing off the HE, switching to AP, and now again I would have been tempted to use the main battery reload booster in order to get that follow-up shot of the AP into the side of the Valavistok as quickly as possible. A double fire being damage conned again.
Problem solved, sir.
Now, aiming about mid-bout on the Valavistok, what do we get? We get 1 penetration and 1 bounce. So unfortunately, you don't really get much bang for your buck out of that one. But it looks like the Valavistak's being burned up and focused out by the rest of the friendly team. So aiming at the deck line, or more this superstructure, and yeah, getting 1 penetration, getting the kill, and arsonist as well. So that takes it to 4 ships versus 5 ships. But that Hipper's in a horrible situation where he's basically left it a little bit too late to probably extract himself, as Ekizoon has. And I believe it's the friendly, yep, the friendly Grosakurfus goes broadside on to the enemy Yamato. Now the enemy Wichita is bow in, and therefore she's able to deny 15-inch shells, so keeping to high explosives is obviously the better choice here. Getting himself a defender ribbon, because the front plating on the Wichita allows it to bounce 15-inch or under armor-piercing rounds. So by using high explosives and aiming a bit higher up in the ship, your aim is just basically to get the kind of high explosive damage and fires on the Wichita in order to focus her out. Getting 1 fire on the Iowa. And she damage controls it. So you'll notice that the damage is not ticking up anymore. Getting another couple of shots downrange on the Iowa, but unfortunately we're running out of map. And you'll note that the friendly Wichita is still behind the island, which has been war game. You'll note here that when you fire on the Iowa, you're not actually locked onto the Iowa, so your dispersion is going to be a little bit weird. However, the 1 hit that you do get does set a fire. Then the next volley, which is locked on, you get 2 penetrations, aiming for that superstructure. Your next volley gets a double fire, so we now have a triple fire on the Iowa, which damage conned 1 fire. Never damage con a single fire. So, earning himself a nice couple of medals as he's going along. But unfortunately, at this game, it is what it is, unfortunately. I don't see how Ekizoon could have really played it any differently, unfortunately. Unfortunately, the last few seconds of the clip that was submitted didn't play, unfortunately, no matter what software I use. So, Ekizoon, if you are watching, if there's any chance, would you be able to change your capture time on the PlayStation to 30 minutes rather than 15 minutes? It just means you're more likely to guarantee to capture the full game without it doing the usual mess up or corruptions on the end. Looking at the end screen, we've got the personal results, and we can see that Ekizoon managed to do 170,000 damage from 63 hits on target and 13 fires, along with 3 citadels. Managed to get 2 kills and earned himself Witherer, Arsonist, Devastating Strike, and High Caliber. So definitely pulled his weight. Now, amusingly, I did manage to get it to play the team results only once. I know that Ekizoon did come top of his team, and that's fair enough considering that he's managed to do a hefty amount of heavy lifting for his team. Um, could Ekizoon play it differently? The only way he could have played that differently is if he just chose to turn left rather than right at the very start. And the way that the game developed and the way that he spawned in, I don't really see why he would want to turn left. I think turning right was probably always going to be the thing that he would probably do. Um, Maybe if he didn't commit so much to turning right, but I think once you see the enemies pushing so much down the right, you're going to probably stick around and hold them off for as long as possible. I think the only way that game could have turned out differently would have been if the Attigo and the Alaska and the Hippo, they played very aggressively. They pushed up on that flank. Um, and I suspect it was to try and find the destroyer, but the destroyer kind of showed his hand at the Bravo objective. And by pushing out so aggressively, you saw how the Attigo went from full HP and not spotted to dead in about 24 seconds, which is very quick. So just beware of that. I think the only way that could have maybe played a little bit differently is if the cruisers didn't play so aggressively. But then there's no spotting, and the lack of a destroyer is crippling to Ekizoon's team. Just the lack of that one class. I think I may have already said it. It's always amusing people complain when there's 5 destroyers in the game, but no one complains when there's 5 battleships in the game. Like it to me, an oversaturation of any single class is a problem. Not just destroyers, not just cruisers, not just battleships, all of them, right? So I think we need a bit of diversity in the player base, and unfortunately, I think with legendary tier being mostly battleships, that kind of shifts that meta of the higher tier to battleships because that's how the matchmaking is going to work. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't be playing battleships? No, no, no. You play what you want to play, but it's just amusing that we end up with games like this where simply one ship doesn't have to do a lot, but simply its pure presence is enough to dictate the movements of the enemy team. And I think if the Wichita that had sat behind the irons the entire time had actually actively tried to pursue the Kagero or capture another objective, if the Alaska had decided maybe to turn left and hold off a little bit and let the game develop before moving anywhere, would have been probably quite an interesting play. I think the issue with Ekizoon's team is more down to just a little bit of positioning. Just that within the first couple of minutes of going, I've spawned on the left, I'm going to play the left objective. I've spawned on the right, I'll play the right objective. I've spawned in the centre, we've got to play our hand at either side. Some of us go left, some of us go right. It's the best way to put it, unfortunately. I'm a very strong believer that World of Warships is rock, paper, scissors. Although well, we'll talk about aircraft carriers another time, but you kind of need to have one of each of those in your arsenal, a rock or a paper or scissors, in order to actually counter the other. Yes, they can play against each other as well, but the biggest fear for a destroyer is a cruiser. The biggest fear for a cruiser is a battleship. The biggest fear for a battleship is a destroyer. And then yeah, and then an aircraft carrier is like bringing a gun to a rock paper scissors, but that's another thing to discuss. Oh well, it was a good game and a great submission. But I just wanted to point out a couple of little pointers here and there in regards to Ekizoon's gameplay. Like he's done really well. I'm not criticizing that at all. There's just a couple of moments where if you use the reload booster, you might have been able to get the damage out a little bit quicker or something like that. I did notice that you did use the reload booster later towards the end of the game, but you did use the correct ammunition selection the entire game. Getting 13 fires with British high explosive, that's really raking in the damage, and getting yourself a wither and arsonist as well. So 2 medals that really show that you're playing HE, and there's nothing wrong with firing HE in a battleship as far as I'm concerned. If it works, then why not? is my point of view on that one. Well, if you have enjoyed it, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. And if you are already subscribed, I'd like to say thank you very much. I'd like to say thank you to the subscribers for their continued comments, contributions, and support. And I'd like to say thank you to Ekizoon for sending in his Vanguard submission. It's a really good game. But like you said, it's just watching your team and just trying to think what could they done differently. That's been the hard one to say. Well, I think I've said everything apart from maybe down in the description will be the modules and the commander build used by Ekizoon. Also, the email address if you wish to send in your own game captures for sea trials or amateur reports. Amateur reports will be carded on the end screen. And there's also a link to Patreon if you wish to support the channel on Patreon. Until next time, I'm the Gav Major, and back to the port.